Welcome to Green Talk by Green Care Solutions on NBC Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. Today we have Emmy Award-winning TV host Montel Williams. I'm your host, BREAL, here with my amazing co-host.
And I'm Brian Gonzalez, representing Green Care Solutions.
And it's your girl, Angela Mazzanti.
Hey everyone, it's Initza Munoz. Welcome to the second part of our show here at Green Talk by Green Care Solutions. We are a cannabis-friendly and educational show. You must be 21 years of age to listen. And what can I say? We are here with the amazing Emmy Award-winning Montel Williams.
Montel in the house.
Yes. Woo.
Yeah, so if you guys have any questions or anything, give us a call at 951-609-4071. We're a 13-time award-winning company for our products, and we're also been featured on Forbes and Yahoo Finance as well.
And make sure you give us a follow at Green Care Solutions 420 on Instagram. We also have our new website, greencaresolutions.com, and you can find all previous episodes of Green Talk at greentalknews.com.
Let's get this party started. Yeah, welcome, Montel.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me, for sure. And the reason why I'm doing this is, to make sure that the demographic that really needs this the most is probably the demographic that is the most fearful of what we provide.
That knows the least.
Yeah.
Correct. Mm-hmm. You need to give them some information to help them be educated enough to know when they make a choice to buy something, they're buying something that's efficacious for their family and not just garbage.
And I think it's,
sorry. Go ahead.
And I think it's great because you're the perfect staple for this because you've had such an amazing journey. You've had MS, you've had a stroke, and look at you. You're so athletic. You're definitely a game changer in the industry. You're an active snowboarder. I love to snowboard myself, and I saw a video of you the other day on Good Morning America. You were just like sipping down those mountains in Utah. So it just shows people who might be struggling with the same illness that you are that there is hope.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's the one thing that the cannabis industry does provide, and that is hope. It's not going to work for everyone. There's not a drug out there on the planet that works for everyone, but it might be that thing that you haven't done that you need to start doing. And it's just like, the whole idea of CBD. I saw a show the other day that really ticked me off where, they had a person said, well, we're going to do an experiment on CBD. So I got some of my staff members to try some CBD, and they did it for 7 days. For what? For 7 days?
7 days.
Are
I think
you
it's
crazy?
important to note, you can't just I feel like a lot of people expect I'm going to take this tincture and try it out like I'm having a headache or something like that. But you can't just take CBD once or twice or even THC or anything like that. It has to be a constant.
Yeah, it's over the course of time. It has to be sort of like your vitamin regimen.
Mm-hmm.
It is
a vitamin.
It's a vitamin. It's a part of your endogenous endocannabinoid system. And so for you to be able to trigger that, and we know what that is, that system is what we believe, and science has stated unequivocally, is what causes cellular homeostasis. And what is cellular homeostasis? It's that Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold, makes the cells work at their optimum function. So and so to do so, you've got to feed that system. And you can't feed it once. You got to feed that system for probably 30 days.
Yeah.
If you really want to get some maximum effect, that is start taking CBD. Probably you ought to really begin the first week microdosing at between 10 to 20 milligrams 3 times a day, then cough it up to about 25 milligrams 3 times a day, then cough it up to about 50 milligrams 2 times a day. Get around the 100 milligram basis. But if you're just taking just CBD, that's not good enough.
Yeah,
it's going to have a little bit of effect,
Correct.
but not the full effect that it would have if you took full spectrum.
Well, some people's bodies are so different. With some people do better on a THC CBD. So
yeah, the thing is that it's like you said, the more education the better, because there's obviously different options. Not everybody likes to smoke joints or blunts or bongs or pipes or whatever. Other people do edibles or even tinctures where they put it in their teas or their drinks.
Sure.
And it's important for them to know that there are these different options, because sometimes you get stuck with old information. Well, I don't want to smoke, it's too loud, or I don't want it to affect me that way. But if you do it in that form and you're microdosing it and you build your tolerance up, I think that's the best way to do it.
And until we really get the science done, which will probably take another 20 years to get through some of the science that needs to be done to be able to help people understand, a body weight ratio compared to what you're actually putting in your body. It behooves each person individually to experiment themselves.
Yeah.
You can try, a little bit of something with THC in it, but all of a sudden, what a lot of us don't even know here in this country is that, back in the 50s and 60s, America tried its best to grow CBD out of the plant. We kept trying to shoot for the higher level of THC, as if that, and that's exactly the same thing that we've been doing in the last 10 years. You go into most dispensaries, they're going to give you something that says, oh, this is 91% THC. Stop with the stupid. The plant didn't grow that way.
No.
Right.
And if we really want to track this and go way back, you go back about 3,000 years, there were probably only about 7 indigenous plants on the planet. And now what we've done is crossbred them the same way we crossbred roses to make every color of pink that you want, every color of red that you want, but it's still a rose.
Right.
Okay? So at the end of the day, if you go back to the original genome, in the original genomes, you'd probably find that there were plants that, we know for a fact that when you plant a cannabis plant, the first 6 weeks to 8 weeks of the plant's growth, its predominant cannabinoid is CBG. It's not THC. It's not CBD.
Yeah, it doesn't produce the THC till after, yeah.
CBG turns into THC and CBD. That cannabinoid goes down after the first flowering. So now all of a sudden you got a plant that's got more THC and CBD in it, but the number for CBG goes down to like 0.001%. So that's why you hear a lot of people calling CBG the God cannabinoid or the stem cell cannabinoid, because it's what turns into and modulates the other two. Well, why are we not researching right now the effect of maybe possibly putting a little bit more CBG in to formulations and looking at this and separating out? There's some research being done all over the country right now and all over the world where they're really literally trying to separate out all 160 of those cannabinoids and then go back in and reformulate those to elicit the response that you need.
That'd be really cool if the Dr. Green Thumb dispensary had something like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Have
to look into that.
Yeah, well, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while because, right now we haven't even come to an agreement yet on how to actually process the plant. You still got buttheads out here right now that are literally as dumb as they could be trying to extract the THC and CBD using butane. Excuse me. How ignorant can you be? Would you walk out of the front door of this building and put your mouth around the exhaust pipe of a car? Then why the hell are you sucking in? Why are you sucking in a propane-based, chemical into your lungs? And we don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody's even testing it to figure it out. And
there's not enough research done on it yet
Correct.
to know what the long-term effects are going to be.
Exactly.
Correct. And when you look at somebody who says, well, it came in 500 parts per million. Really? And you think that's good? 500 little parts of butane went into your lungs.
Yeah.
It's sitting there. That's good for you?
That's
Stop.
unacceptable.
That's right. Come on, stop. And then we jumped over immediately to, supercritical CO2 and ethanol. Okay, I think those are two inert gases that have a lower evaporation point, and yes, you can get them down to 0 parts per billion, but, we have people out here who don't even understand how to work the testing equipment. We haven't come up with a standardization on testing yet.
Yeah, because the industry is so young.
Correct.
They don't have the right scientists that
Correct.
know anything about the industry.
At the end of the day, it may sound as if I'm speaking against the industry, but I'm not. I think I'm speaking for the industry to do more research. And no, we don't need to wait 20 years to figure out whether or not this works. Remember, this has been around for 5,000 years. And we only had one person, literally one report of a death from consuming cannabis. And it really wasn't the cannabis. It was the fact that, the grower and the people who did literally subjected it to and allowed it to be subjected to black mold. So, it's not the plant.
Yeah.
And we don't need to have all the research to get it done.
I always say this on our show. Think of it as if you're going to a restaurant, right? You're going to be consuming the food, you're purchasing that food. You want to make sure that restaurant refrigerates the food, doesn't put any harsh chemicals in the food because you're consuming it. Think of it as the same as your cannabis. You want to know that it's clean, that it's been taken care of. There are people, unfortunately, that are trying to grow cannabis and putting like weed killer around the plants, and then they're smoking it, and these things can definitely harm you. It's not meant for your body.
That's why I'm glad a lot of these testing labs now exist. But, even then, I question the knowledge in how they're testing it, because who's to say that they bring in one, let's just say cannabis brand, and they have their cannabis or whatever product tested, and it tests dirty. How diligent are they on, getting all the measures it takes to clean their system out So when they're testing the next product, that doesn't get tainted.
Yeah, there's still a lot of holes.
There's still a
There's a lot of holes. And, and again, one of the things that people need to understand, the plant will test. You can take one plant, test the bottom of it, the lowest bud on the plant, test the highest bud on the plant, and they will come out different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fact because,
Yeah.
the plant is that way. So how do we really set the standards? And, there's something called ASTM. There's ways that we've had standards for other things, for food products for years. We can do the same thing when it comes to cannabis.
Absolutely.
And it should get done.
100%.
Yeah. Let me clean something up. As I said, I gave out the number for the patent. It's 6630507. Let me just read a little piece here for a second. The cannabinoids are found to have particular application to neuroprotectants. For example, in limiting neurological damage following ischemic insults, such as stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, HIV, dementia. This is what the U.S. government claimed back in 1992.
Wow.
I mean, really. And then you have, some beanhead like, the former Attorney General come in. We have no viable medical reason for cannabis. It's like, shut up.
Yeah.
It's like smacking them upside the head and throwing it. And honestly, there's no reason why anybody listening shouldn't write a letter to your congressman or senator and say, how stupid can you be? Every year you vote in a budget. Every year that budget has funding in it for marijuana research.
Yeah. They just don't tell
Why
the
not
public.
ask the question?
They don't tell the public. The public has
Right.
to ask that question.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
Do you think it's mostly because they're worried about the pharmaceutical industry, or is it just what do you think is the idea, or maybe it's just not enough education?
I think it's
about
not
it?
enough education, and I'm not one of those to jump up and down and beat up the pharmaceutical industry. I don't believe there's anybody who goes to work every single day
With a bad intention.
with a bad intention to hurt people. They're going in there trying their best. They have their little niche that they studied in school
Exactly.
for 10 years, and now they're at a point where they're a researcher and they're still studying that. But they've failed to recognize that there were other things being taught along the way. They've been teaching about the endocannabinoid system in a few medical schools for the last 10 years. But you ask most doctors and they have no idea what you're talking about. Why? Because they haven't spent the time going back and doing continuing medical education, and learning what they missed.
And I believe that's like a lot of the older doctors too.
Yep.
Because
Some of the
It's like a
younger
culture
ones too,
thing,
my
too.
friend. I'm telling you, younger
Yeah.
ones too. They get caught up in their way. It's like
The traditional-
I went to this school and
Yeah,
shut up.
I paid a lot of money for this. I'm going to
Yeah.
learn this information, and that's
Correct.
what I'm going to give to the people.
Correct.
Well, look at how many people think that you can get high off CBD or don't even know enough about it. It's like there's clearly not enough education being done. No matter how much we can try as advocates for it, we can only go so far. It's essentially on doctors and them to learn those things and educate their patients.
Well, I got to applaud the doctor that suggested to you, because I think we need more doctors like that, that are willing to break away from that chain of, a lot of them come out of college with their debt,
Yep.
their school debt, whatever.
I'm
And
still paying my debt
yeah,
from school.
and they have to pay that debt down. And when the pharmaceutical companies come to some young doctor and say, hey, we're going to give you X amount, you got to push these pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to say no, but some of them, they want to do good and they know some of this stuff isn't working. So I applaud the ones that actually say, have you tried this?
Now I should add to the fact that the doctor who told me this back in 1991 said, I'm going to tell you this, but I'm not going to tell anybody I ever said this. Don't tell anybody I ever said this. So I was like, okay, thanks, doc. But at the same time, just think about that mentality.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody I ever told you this. And how many other people could have had that conversation that's still walking in and getting the same conversation for opioid?
A very small number of people have, because there are a few of those doctors
Right.
out there that have, that they do the diligence on the industry too, and the possibilities of how you can treat people with cannabis. I believe some of them out there, try to keep their knowledge up in terms of possibilities, right?
It's slowly starting to become a movement, though. I mean, I live in Florida now, I live in Miami, and the number of doctors, and again, this is a state where, you've got a demographic, and let's be honest about this. I think part of what this industry has failed to recognize is that as we move and push to try to get recreation or adult use states, most people think that your primary consumer is going to be the 18 to 34, which is the same thing that people shoot for when it comes to all marketing and advertising. But that's the least money-laden demographic in America. The biggest group with money and its disposable income in this country are baby boomers.
Yeah.
And let's recognize, why has the industry really burgeoned the way it has? Why have states started to pass legislation the way they have? Because the baby boomers are in charge. And the baby boomers remember that they were the ones partying, smoking when they were in high school and in college, and they've had successful lives. Yeah. So now they're sitting back going, wait a minute, stop. Why do I have to take 25 pills when I could take, a lot of people don't know that in Israel, cannabis is a geriatric drug.
Yeah.
You turn 70 years old, you can walk down about 5 different hospitals, show them your ID card, and bingo, bango, they roll you out an ounce of pot.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, in most dispensaries, it's a lot of older folks coming in for medicine.
Correct. Older folks who were tired of taking 6 and 7, 8 medications. That's right.
When you're in pain, you get desperate. You want some relief. And people, we all know the opioid epidemic.
Horrible.
You have to be blind not to see that and what's going on with that. And to find relief, everybody just wants to find relief.
Yes.
And if you can do it with something as simple as a hemp plant or a cannabis plant, and you have our tinctures are broad spectrum, like you said. It's not just about an isolate CBD. You got to get the whole plant. Like our dog treats, they're cold pressed whole hemp, all natural. So it's all about giving people the right ingredients and processing it the correct way. But I know of a personal story that, because I work directly with people that use our products, I follow feedback from 7 years. Of one of my patients that's using Oxy, right? Former military, 7 years, bad back. 6 months is all it took. Since December 24th of this past year, completely off. Just on topicals and our broad spectrum tincture.
There you go.
It's real stories. It's stuff like that drives me every single day to wake up and do what I do.
And there are millions of those stories across the country, not thousands, millions of those stories across the country. Yet, the government and certain doctors still say, well, no, you're still just talking about an N of 1. No, we're not. We're talking about an N of 1,000,000.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
The thing is, what's the hardest part in trying it? That's what I don't understand. These people could at least try it and see how it does. The worst case, it's hey, it doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah, it does come from Mother Earth, and here we are enhancing, genetically modifying, even in certain cases, things that we consume, and it hasn't been working, and it hasn't been tested more than 100 years, so there has been side effects. So another interesting thing, you've been in the military for 22 years, and going back to what Brian said, have you ever seen people become addicted to certain painkillers?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The military, again, I just interviewed Ricky, and, I've done a couple of interviews with multiple football players. The other night, everybody in the country got all excited because they got to sit up until 11:30 at night and watch guys run into each other at 60 miles an hour for our entertainment. Yeah. And don't recognize the fact that 100% of them, not 90%, not 80%, 100% of them are going to be in pain and be injured in about 10 years. When they retire, they are going to bear the brunt of what they did as professional football players for our entertainment. And a lot of people don't know that to walk out on that field the other night, probably 50, 60% of them you did check. If you had a camera back in the dugout, you would have seen them all lined up in a row with a doctor sticking tramadol in their butt. Sticking some sort of drug in their butt to get them to go out on the field to bang against each other for our entertainment. Yeah. And I'm not knocking the sport. If that's what you want to do, you want to play the sport, go right ahead. But let's also recognize that contact sports could be helped by the use of cannabis, because we do know, just like I just read, the government understands that it's a neuroprotectant.
And you hear about more and more athletes wanting to use cannabis as their therapy, as their medicine, as opposed to the over-counter drugs.
Because they see what happens.
Oh yeah, they're the ones who have to deal with it. It may suppress something for a time, but it's doing it. It doesn't speak to the damage that it's doing somewhere else in your body, like your liver, for instance. Your liver has to process all those pharmaceuticals, and if you become addicted to it, that's another problem that develops later.
Yeah, and
we don't also recognize, why is cannabis still as outlawed as it is? This was, you can, we changed the scope of this conversation in about a half a second if I roll into this too deep, and we don't have to go there. But, let's recognize that in 1931, we had just, come out of prohibition for alcohol, and we should understand that Anslinger was a huge prohibitionist. He was, one of the biggest people fighting against alcohol use in America and making sure he didn't want to have it made legal again. And during his campaigning against alcohol was actually out on the stump telling people that he thought hemp and cannabis was safer than alcohol. It wasn't until after they legalized alcohol and one boy almost lost his job that he realized, oh crap, we got to get something else to lock them darkies up. And let's get this straight. Since there has been prohibition against cannabis, 80% of the people who have been arrested in this country have been people of color.
Yeah.
80.
Yeah.
That's not by circumstance or happenstance. Enslavement is enslavement is enslavement. It just depends on which, what hat it puts on. And, there are people out there right now who still are angered by the fact that you're legalizing something that they were using to make money off of. We have prisons out here that are built on making sure that they have beds filled.
Yeah.
And,
private prisons.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, there needs to be a real legitimate discussion about the fact that, excuse me a second, so if this was really just because we were so afraid of drug, how come you don't, walk around down on Wall Street and, have somebody drop their pants or dig in people's pockets, when they walk out of the office? That doesn't happen.
Not at all.
And will never happen.
Happens in the inner cities.
Correct.
And it's so unfortunately, too, because now that it's becoming recreationally legal in certain states, there are people that are actually serving life sentences.
Correct.
Right now, and it's just so heartbreaking because here we are, on Dr. Green Thumb, which another podcast, BREAL has, we smoke casually, and it's okay to medicate, but here we have someone in a cell that's been in there for 30, 40 plus years already.
Well, not just that, there's countries where you'll get the death penalty.
Right.
In Indonesia, I've been to Indonesia, and right when you're landing, it says if you have drugs on you, it could result in death penalty.
Right.
Yeah.
In other countries, no, because India, it's okay. So in India and Indonesia, separate countries, but they're not too far away, 3-hour flight. So.
Yeah, it's crazy the way that it's still looked at in places that are far behind in education.
It's crazy how it's looked at in the states here in the United States of America.
Yeah.
When a state right next door has legal cannabis and the state next door doesn't.
Yeah.
Is it hard for you to find a medical cannabis in Florida? I know it's okay medically, but it's still not recreationally legal.
It's medically legal down there. And I had my own brand. I'm literally changing manufacturing partners as we speak. And I have my own brand for now the last 4 years. And so I've not had a problem.
That's good.
Making sure that I can find medication.
Good.
I mean, you've been talking about it and being an advocate for it for such a long time. I would imagine everybody was just, down there who knew what you were doing were probably just donating whatever. Say, hey, I got this bag for you,
I got you.
Well, it's very, very funny. In a lot of places, I'll be walking through a hotel lobby and somebody will walk up and go, "Hey, man, I got something for you." And I'll reach out and go, "Did you actually just hand me?" Okay, cool. Thank you.
Do you ever think about getting back into TV, or do you think they won't let you back in because they're afraid of what you're going to come with in terms of what you're going to talk about?
I will say that, Hollywood has not been its most open door for me. And I've never really been the one who, I never really owed anybody anything here. And I don't think that Hollywood likes people who don't owe people something.
Yeah, they have to have something on you,
correct.
Right?
And you created your own show, so it shows that you're a producer or you're a creator of content yourself.
Absolutely.
So you didn't really need anybody.
No, I founded my show without agent or manager. As a matter of fact, I get the agent fees myself for the Montel Williams Show when it started. And, I literally owned that show, half of that show, for the majority of its run. But, I've found that doors are not necessarily that wide open. And, I have a skill set that very few have in this industry, but it's tough to find a home.
Right. Yeah,
I'm doing a show. I literally am doing a show right now. It's called, Military Makeover with Montel Williams. I do a show that literally should be on, I think, network television, because it's that powerful of a show where we take veterans who own their homes and we, especially those who are wounded or those who have had difficulty, and we make their home over from the ground up.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And remember, we just did a show, the one that's airing starting on the 14th. Is a show about the Hickson family out of South Florida. If you remember 2 years ago, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. the high school shooting down there, were 17 people lost their life. 14 of them were kids. 3 of them were teachers. When that, everybody remembers the news, looking at the news and seeing that security guard cowering behind a pole. While he was cowering behind a pole, the head of their athletic department went running in to see if he could save lives. And his name was Chris Hickson. Well, Chris Hickson was a 27-year veteran in the United States Navy and remembered wholeheartedly his, oath of office that I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. He went running in trying to protect children from a domestic terrorist and gave his life. And he left behind a wife and a special needs child. And so we went in and just redid their home from the ground up. Really, 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 really powerful story. The show airs every Friday morning on Lifetime. But this show should be on network TV.
Yeah.
TV, it's that powerful of a show. It shows, the entire community coming together. I mean, we have anywhere from 100 to 200 volunteers a day coming by to do the work. And, we do a makeover of our home in 10 days. So we can change a home from the ground to the ceiling 100%.
See, Hollywood should be wanting to put out stories like that.
Correct.
100%.
Yeah.
And
Instead of all these
Gossip.
catch me outside girls and
gossip and nonsense.
well, it also speaks to, once again, the way that you did your talk show as opposed to like a Springer and Jenny Jones and the rest of them. It was all based on drama. And I think it built people into accepting the stuff. That was close. The things that we see today, where you would see someone, getting beat up in the street. Someone doesn't go help them. They're most likely filming it so they can put it on their feed.
you see so much negativity and
and it's like for the want to go viral because we want to see the most outrageous things because that's what we were fed for so long. Correct. And it translates from TV into radio. Because for a time you would hear different styles of music that were inspirational, that were educational, that were about nothing, just about a vibe and party and celebration, right? And then it turned into let's get rid of the provocative stuff, the things that make you think or teach you, and let's just promote this stuff that's materialistic,
right.
And possibly we'll get people to idolize these guys that are talking about things that they don't really do, like selling drugs, popping pills, and all this other stuff. And let's fill some of these private prisons that we're invested in.
Absolutely. We right now, I think we are the nation of salacious content. We can't have anything just be, good anymore. I mean, you take a look at, we just had the Iowa caucuses last night, and all today is going to be nothing but controversy about the Iowa caucuses. And, we're living in a time when people wonder why we have the person who's running the show that we have.
Yeah, people got tired of politicians, but then they put this guy up in there. That was, oh my
more
God.
Drama.
Yeah, more drama. I mean, he's a reality TV show star.
Correct.
So this is what we're getting. We're getting fed more of it.
And knew that he could run as a reality TV star rather than as a politician. That's exactly what we did. We for us to blame him is really blame on ourselves.
It's blaming ourselves, exactly. Like those of us who empowered him and those of us who sat on his hands thinking that there was no possible way he could get in there.
I knew 8 months beforehand he was getting elected, like I've been saying again.
Yeah.
Well, before we come to the end of our show, what kind of advice would you give a lot of the youth that's watching? Because we have a demographic between 21 to 40. What kind of advice would you give them?
I think one of the most important things that they need to recognize is that what we have done to you and left behind for you is going to be your bane. This is like, no longer time to sit around thinking that somebody else is going to fix this. It's not going to happen. Your parents aren't fixing this. Your big brother's not fixing this.
Your politicians aren't
fixing this. It's going to be up to you. And unfortunately, I think that we've created in that demographic a group that just thinks, whatever.
It'll fix itself.
Whatever.
Things don't fix themselves.
They do not fix themselves, man. I mean, so, I would beg that, this upcoming group that is really responsible for tomorrow take the bull by the reins.
Yes,
take it by the horns and say, if not me, who?
Get involved.
Mm-hmm.
Got to get involved. If not, we may as well all just kiss it goodbye.
And pick proper role models too. I feel like nowadays kids are always kind of following things that I don't have any children yet or anything, but I have nieces and nephews, and it's always good just to make sure if you're going to be somebody of advocacy and just like yourself, you see something that works like CBD, the cannabinoids, just kind of do it in the proper way and just be a good advocate at it.
Absolutely. I mean, but I think, one of the things that I've lived my entire life by has been the motto that I alone own the definition of who I am. Nobody has a right to define me but me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I look at what it is I want to represent, I represent things from my standpoint, not from someone else's. I don't want to ever have to live down to somebody else's expectations. I want to live up to my own. And that's really what I think the youth of today need to start to recognize is that, you are not the sum of someone else's opinion. You're the sum of your own. Now form your opinion.
And now with social media too, there's so many as social media is now coined it, trolls. People can be so negative,
Sure.
and as long as you just know that what you're doing is moral, or you're just working towards something, just don't listen to the trolls. I mean, we've all heard these trolls.
And I think if you know who you are, stick with that.
Correct. If you know who you are, trolls can't bother you. I mean, you really can't. You don't live down to someone else's expectation of yourself. You live up to your own. And it's like the other night at the Super Bowl. The trolls are going crazy over the halftime show.
Shakira and J-Lo.
Yeah.
I thought they did a great job.
Yeah, but then, you got these people saying, was that objectification of women again? Well, or was that empowerment of women? Was that women taking power of the fact that they are strong individuals and this is who they are and they're proud of who they are and this is what's made them who they are. So let me be proud of that and show you that.
And
that's an
J-Lo
argument.
being 50 and Shakira being 47. That's
Correct.
pretty cool.
Yeah, there was more positives than negatives there.
I think
saw a
one.
lot
But you had to have some haters.
negative.
Yeah, of course.
Always,
What's
yeah.
life without them, right?
Yeah.
I think they were the safest bet. And the
Yeah.
NFL didn't want the controversy. But I thought they did a great job.
I thought it was tasteful. I didn't think of it wrong. Because J-Lo's concerts are always like that, and
Yeah.
Shakira's concerts are always like that. What are you going to
That's
expect?
just
It's just how it
them.
is.
Right.
When I think there's nobody can tell somebody how they want to empower themselves. I mean, you see a lot of girls on social media like posting a certain way and somebody be like, oh, you're just doing that for attention. And it's no, what if I'm doing it to boost confidence in myself? What if it makes me feel good? What's wrong with that?
I
just be
mean,
artistic.
what if they're doing it because they're entertainers and that's what they get
Yeah,
paid to do, right?
exactly. Stop. I feel like people need to stop looking into things so much for something negative to pull from it.
Yeah, start looking at yourself instead of worried about others. I mean, see what you can do, create your own path.
God can come down on a chariot and say, hey, this is all beautiful, and somebody will come with it. No, it ain't.
Always somebody like
Who are
that.
you to tell me?
Right.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely something that I feel like people from the age 21 to 40 go through. I mean, with everybody's on the internet and goes through different things. But what are your social media handles for everybody that is not following you at the moment? They can follow you and see your project right now, Military Makeover and other things.
Yeah, militarymakeover.com. You can go up and find out where that's at. That's on Lifetime every Friday morning. And then, of course, you can follow me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel, where we talk about everything and anything cannabis and hemp related to make sure, again, like I said, I try my best to educate people so that they can make a good discerning decision when they go into a dispensary or into a stop. They get enough information to understand why they're making choices for their family. And then, montelmedia.com. You can also find out a lot of what I'm doing there.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you so very much,
thanks for having me.
Montel,
Thanks for
being
having me.
on the
Sure.
show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
But thanks for coming down.
Absolutely. So thanks for having me.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I'm Yunitza Munoz, and I'm here with my amazing co-host.
I'm Brian with Green Care Solutions.
And it's your girl, Angela Mazzanti.
I'm BREAL.
Thank you guys for tuning in here on NBC Radio, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Till next time.